What's up guys, Josh here. Right, so I want to start today's video with a question. If you had to pick the two drivers in Formula 1 who are the absolute least likely to swap teams, who would you say? I reckon most of you would say Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri. Verstappen has been at Red Bull his entire career, Piastri is at McLaren, one of the fastest cars on the grid. Why would either of them go anywhere? Well, that's exactly what makes this story so fascinating. Because right now in July 2026, there are serious reports coming out of the paddock suggesting that both of these drivers are looking to leave their current teams, and the most likely destination for each of them, each other's seat. Let's start with Max, because his situation is the one that's been building for the longest time. Verstappen signed a long-term contract with Red Bull that was supposed to keep him at the team until the end of 2028, but buried inside that contract is a clause that changes everything. The clause states that if Verstappen is not in the top two of the Drivers' Championship by the time the summer break arrives, he has the legal right to terminate his deal and walk away. After the British Grand Prix, Verstappen is sitting in 7th place with 76 points. George Russell is second in the standings, and the gap between them is 78 points. With only 2 races left before the summer break, Belgium and Hungary, it's mathematically impossible for Verstappen to close that gap. His exit clause is now officially active. His manager, Raymond Vermeulen, basically confirmed the mood when he told the press recently, "In the end, Max wasn't born to race in the midfield." That's not the kind of statement a manager makes when his driver is planning to stay put. Now the question everyone is asking is where Verstappen would actually go. And to understand that, you have to understand just how bad things have gotten at Red Bull. The team that Verstappen joined as a teenager is barely recognisable anymore. Adrian Newey, the man widely considered the greatest car designer in the history of the sport, has left. Jonathan Wheatley, the sporting director, who orchestrated so many of Red Bull's strategic masterclasses, is also on his way out. And then came the news that hit Verstappen the hardest. His race engineer, Giampiero Lambiase, the man who's been on the other end of his radio for years, has announced he's leaving too. On top of all of that, the car itself has become a liability. At Silverstone, Verstappen suffered a terrifying rear wing failure at the high-speed Stowe corner that sent him spinning into the gravel. It was the same wing issue that caused him to crash during qualifying in Austria the week before. He called it super dangerous on the radio, and he was absolutely right. A team that was once the gold standard in Formula 1 is now sending their driver out in a car he doesn't trust. Mercedes is off the table. Toto Wolff has publicly confirmed that George Russell and Kimi Antonelli are staying at Mercedes for 2027. Ferrari already has Hamilton and Leclerc locked in. That leaves McLaren as the most realistic option, and there's already evidence that conversations have started. During the Austrian Grand Prix weekend, Verstappen reportedly held a secret meeting with McLaren management to explore what a move could look like. Zak Brown later played it down, saying the talks didn't go anywhere, but he also added that Verstappen would be a strong option if one of his current drivers were to slip on a banana peel. That's a very specific thing to say if you have absolutely no interest. So that's the full picture of why Verstappen wants out. Now here's where the story gets really interesting, because the other half of this potential swap is Oscar Piastri, and his reasons for wanting to leave McLaren are completely different from Verstappen's reasons for wanting to leave Red Bull. Piastri is not dealing with a slow car or a team in decline. McLaren is genuinely one of the best outfits in the paddock right now. The problem is not the machinery, the problem is the politics. McLaren operates under what the paddock calls the papaya rules. These are internal team guidelines that are supposed to allow both drivers to race cleanly, but in practice, they've been used to protect Lando Norris's championship position. The moment that reportedly broke Piastri was at the Italian Grand Prix in Monza last year. McLaren gave him a direct team order to move over and let Norris through. He did it, but sources close to him say he was absolutely furious about it. The thing is, Piastri is not just any driver who's unhappy with his team. He's managed by Mark Webber. If you know your Formula 1 history, you know that Webber spent years at Red Bull being treated as the number 2 driver behind Sebastian Vettel. He hated every second of it. He left that situation feeling like he never got the recognition he deserved, and now he's watching his driver go through the exact same thing at McLaren. Webber still has strong relationships inside the Red Bull organisation. He knows the team, he knows the people, and he knows that if Verstappen leaves, Red Bull will be in desperate need of a new lead driver. Piastri would walk in as number 1. No team orders, no papaya rules, just a team built entirely around him. Piastri also has an exit clause in his McLaren contract. His deal runs until 2028, but if he's not inside the top 5 of the championship by the summer break, he can trigger his release. Right now he's sitting in 6th place, 1 position outside the threshold. He has 2 races to either secure his spot or fall further back. If he has a difficult couple of weekends, the clause fires, and suddenly both drivers are on the market at the same time. And here's the thing that makes Webber's position so powerful. Red Bull have already publicly identified Piastri as the driver they would want if Verstappen leaves. Christian Horner mentioned Piastri's name openly when the first Verstappen to Mercedes rumours started circulating. That wasn't an accident, that was Red Bull planting a seed and Webber noticed. That's the scenario that makes this swap feel genuinely possible. It's not just one driver wanting to leave, it's 2 drivers at 2 different teams with 2 different frustrations whose contract clauses could activate at almost exactly the same moment. But let's be honest about something, because I think a lot of people are getting swept up in the excitement of this rumour without thinking it through properly. If Verstappen goes to McLaren, he's not walking into a paradise, he's walking into the exact same environment that's driving Piastri out. McLaren is Lando Norris's team, full stop. Norris has been there for years. The garage culture is built around him, and he has the full trust of the leadership. If Verstappen arrives, he's not going to be handed priority on strategy or upgrades just because of his reputation. He's going to have to earn it, and knowing Verstappen, he's not the type to quietly accept being second in the pecking order. Verstappen has never in his career been a number 2 driver. From the moment he joined Red Bull as a teenager, the team adapted to him. He's always had the first call on everything. If McLaren tries to apply the papaya rules to him the way they applied them to Piastri, things are going to get very messy very quickly. There's also a broader question about whether Verstappen even needs McLaren. Red Bull still has the most famous seat in the sport, and even in a down period, it's not like the team is going to disappear. They have the budget, the infrastructure, and the history. If Verstappen stays and the team manages to turn things around, he could be in a position to win a 5th title in a Red Bull. If he leaves and goes to McLaren, he's immediately in a battle with Norris for supremacy inside his own garage. That said, the counter-argument is also strong. McLaren's car is genuinely fast right now. Norris is leading the championship. If Verstappen wants to win in the short term, McLaren gives him the best chance of doing that. And at 28 years old, he's not going to wait around forever for Red Bull to fix their problems. So where does all of this leave us? The swap is still a rumour, but it's a rumour that's backed by real contract clauses, real frustrations, and real conversations that are reportedly already happening. Verstappen's exit clause is active. Piastri's is on the edge. The next 2 races in Hungary and Belgium are going to be absolutely crucial. If Piastri finishes in the top 5 in both races and secures his championship position, his clause disappears and the swap is dead. But if he struggles and the clause activates, we could be looking at the most dramatic reshuffling of the driver market that Formula 1 has ever seen. So keep a very close eye on those standings over the next few weeks, because this story is far from over. The summer break is coming fast, and by the time it arrives, we might know whether this is the biggest driver swap in Formula 1 history, or just the most exciting rumour of the season that never quite happened. Either way, it's going to be a fascinating few weeks. So let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one.